Hello, everybody. I'm Vishnu Rangaya. I'm an undergraduate statistics student, part of the data science club here at UC Davis. And today I will be talking with Dr. Nicholas Anderson. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Dr. Anderson.
Vishnu.
Cool. So to begin this interview, can you give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. So I did my undergraduate degree in computer science and was involved in developing some early mobile technology for health monitoring back in the olden days, and started a couple companies, and became very interested in being at more of the design and research space. So I went back to school and got my master's in biomedical informatics at Oregon Health Sciences University, and then my doctorate at University of Washington. Since that time, I spent some time at the University of Washington. I came to UC Davis in 2013, and I'm part of the Translational Science Research Center on the health system. I'm also I'm the division chief of health informatics, and run the graduate program in health informatics in the School of Medicine.
Very interesting. So we wanted to learn a little bit about your life and interests outside of work. So we know you're a very busy person, but in your free time, what do you like to do?
I like sailing and running, and almost all the adventure sports, but I'm doing less of them these days. I do a lot of sailing because there's so much data involved. In part, you need to know, the weather, and you need to know, energy efficiency and various conditions and things like that. And there's so much you can capture in doing things. And that's the nerdy part of it. But when you're out there and sometimes the weather gets wild, you become more enthused trying to figure out how to plan to avoid that in some cases. And I like backcountry skiing and things like that. Haven't done as much of it this last year because of this situation. I also am a traveler. I'm from New Zealand originally, so I've spent a lot of time traveling, in Europe and Australia and things like that. And so, I'm a huge science fiction.
Awesome. I would have never imagined that. So for the next portion of the interview, I'm going to be passing it off to Shraddha, who's going to ask a little bit more about your research.
I'm an undergrad student at UC Davis. What would be the most ideal way for students to reach out to you regarding research, and how should they do this, like via email or office hours? And if via email, what should they include?
I think one of my experiences that seems to work very well is that small teams reach out and they have some sort of collaborative, goal. Can we work with you for the quarter? And in that team, there'll be, strengths and difference of this, and they will have some ability to collectively work on this, because that gives a lot of reinforcement and helps us kind of orient and manage things a little bit better. So that's one approach, is that if you have some self-forming teams who want to do data visualization or knowledge review or security validation, what have you, as a focus, then that could work, because that way we can roll this into more organized things. One of the challenges we have with everybody, investigators and masters, doctoral, undergrads, is if you're too independent, you can get really lost and frustrated, and it's hard to get to independence and not be that way. So you take some. It's good to go with, how does that go? He who travels fastest travels alone, but he who travels furthest travels with friends, something like that. So small teams, would be good. I've worked with Berkeley on this, and I've had some other engagements. So that's one thing. If that isn't your situation, if you are more of a independent, someone who's seeking a particular experience, then I think it's absolutely fine to reach out through email, but perhaps start with your why, your alignment with it, be it your health relationship or your expertise in technology or the research goal or what have you, and then go into other options there. we always like CVs. I mean, just even just technical CVs, just quick reference of that. If you have had any experience in generating your own software, Git submissions or other products, awesome. Put that forwards, because love that. That's independent. Also, if you have referrals from someone who we would presumably get referrals from, and that can be obviously the computer science faculty. It can be from anyone really. It's nice to know those things. It's just hard to judge those. So yeah, email's good. What we would like to do more in the future, at least in my program, is have more of a quarterly or annual kind of a project fair sort of thing, where we have some the teams or some other things that we can just do in a more open hack lab sort of approach to get things started. Okay, on that note, Data Lab, which is resource on campus, is a great place to find some of our peers who are bridging this world, and being involved in what they do is probably a good way to ultimately be involved in what I do, because we collaborate with them a lot. And we do have 3 undergraduate informatics courses we actually teach in the public health sciences program for that can be used in I guess undergrad or any majors. We have basically a public health informatics undergraduate course, a systems informatics course, and a data visualization informatics course. And they're kind of survey courses, but in through them you'll get exposure to some of the driving problems that we have, and likely be ultimately introduced to some of the people who have those problems in the health sciences system. I guess one more thing is that not everything has to come to health sciences for it to be in health sciences. Vet med is doing a lot of work which is very close. Obviously, social sciences and communications are doing it as well. It's just that if you want to be in the a little more clinical or public health, then you probably will visit us en route to something else there. But there are other places on campus that are equally in the same problem space, but with some different restrictions on data access and things.
Thank you so much. I'm going to be passing it on to Adirna, who's going to be asking you about your career path.
Sure.
Hi, so my name's Udirno. I'm also a second year, I'm a statistics major here at UC Davis. So we had a few general career path questions that we wanted to ask you. So in general, like data science, it's a pretty broad field. They come from a variety of backgrounds. So we wanted to know how you specifically got into this field, health informatics specifically, what drove you to this area of data science?
Sure. I don't know if my experience is everyone's, but again, I am. When I got my undergraduate degree in computer science a long time ago, all my friends were getting into games, and I was very jealous. But I was like, I saw this. I was working in a company doing reverse engineering on large systems, which were systems that someone had lost the code, and that company basically moved to the East Coast. And I was like, no way am I doing that. It was important at the time. So I joined a small company doing computer medical data. That was actually the name of the company. And I started learning about the structure of it. And it was originally numbing, like watching paint dry. And then pretty soon, but I was like, oh, the engines behind these things are insane. And that was the beginning of the early decision express system kind of development, which, rule-based knowledge generation system. And like, oh, what you mean is you're building AI. Like, oh, that sounds cool. So it wasn't that. It was super primitive. But through that, there was some commercial options for these tools. But I don't think the world was ready. And I wound up, jumping on the coattails of the early mobile devices because it was trying to bring things from patients back and give them information back. And we joked about building tricorders before it was already stale, but and we did. But I just began to realize that industry is an incredible place, and that I miss the pace of industry oftentimes. Academics does not move at that pace, but it doesn't necessarily give you the ability to look at the big picture of what these mechanisms and methods are. Industry is a place I think we should be closer partnership with. We should have better research integration and translation, particularly in things like this. But if we're trying to look at things that, again, to improve health and to improve people's lives, then we need to not only build product, we need to understand the constructs of the work, how to evaluate it, how to be diverse, how to make sure anyone ultimately can get access to this, not just the special few who can afford what is the latest thing. So I came to academics to try to be more related to the that basis. Though again, I miss, and I think we as universities miss, the pace and competency and dynamicness of being forced to develop software and things. I don't want to be personally in a company where I build something that is just going to go back on the shelf. I don't feel like, I've had several products from my first companies where I put 2 years of effort into them, and then they change direction, and I could do nothing but just observe that. And I would prefer to be able to lead those things from their need versus from their industry need. So here we are in this, and I think the academic career path is one that always misses some of that pace, but it gives you this freedom to be critical, and then obligation to try to prove it that you don't really get as much directly in industry. And so a lot of what we do these days, as I mentioned before, is that so many tools are already being built. I mean, we're not going to build blockchain again. We sure can determine if it works in health. We're not going to build a new, Python interpreter or PyTorch algorithm, but we can determine how to make it effective and then generalize it. We're not going to build new phones for sure, but we can definitely look at the mechanisms by which people actually use them and capture them. So I'm very happy to be able to participate with some incredible peers in, understanding the human condition, to be able to advance the technologies and resources and knowledge systems that can hopefully lead to someone else making, massive profits, but can also do it while improving the thing that we're trying to do. So I guess that's kind of the very long view of it. I think there's incredible opportunity in either direction. I think academics, as we all know, it's not what it used to be, but it is, if nothing else, I've seen from this pandemic, is that the interest in understanding modeling and health data is off the charts, and anyone is able to do it, from your citizen scientist to your government epidemiologist to your politician with ulterior motives. Anyone is interested in doing it, and I think that within academics we have a long future of making that methodologically sound, ethically sound, and is vital. So a lot of training opportunities, and I think a lot of research opportunities, and that's just my opinion of that. I think in industry, of course, is even bigger, but I can only really speak to the health side of things. It's in industry, I think you've got your startup culture, which is its own thing, which you can, with your friends, start a company and do something powerful and interesting, but you have this risk of it being there. Or you have some of these other companies that are like beginning to build data science competencies as part of their worlds. We've got data science, informatics, things in Kaiser now that operates in 16 million patients or something like that. We've got, state data science teams that are just facilitating vaccines and dosing and the testing. We've got, international data science collaboratives. foundations. So if you could, if you want to go to something and you don't want all the risk, then look for the competency of the data science culture that is available in these things, and talk to them. That'd be my humble advice. But it's all evolving very quickly. But I think anyone with data science or such computer science with a domain, in my case, attached to that, zero problem these days. I think most of those companies, if they're anything like I expect them, will be also looking for examples of you completing things, be them research pilots or your own individual work, but things that you have shows your independence in completing something that is, obviously complex coordination and development. So more experience you have in those things, the faster you will go. In academics, same thing, but you also want there to be the research component to it, like participation in developing research, evaluating it, creating it, which is easy to come by, roughly, relatively. But that's what we look for more than just the products. But yeah.
Yeah, I never looked at it from the academic side, so that's really interesting. I think for our final question, we just wanted to ask kind of how your time was as an undergraduate, and if you had any general advice for students starting out at UC Davis. It doesn't have to be specific to data science, but if you want to, anything you want to say.
Yeah, and I'm probably not representative. I did an associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree, doctorate. So I did all the steps. I don't know why I just felt I had to do more. And I went to a very interdisciplinary undergraduate university up in Olympia, where everything was integrated. And so when we did computer science, it was tied to health at that time, or databases and things like that. So I really benefited by having everything went in the same direction, whatever it may be. So my only advice with these days is that if there are opportunities for synergy across your coursework, not just modularizing these different pieces, go with that, because you can use your effort in that. I was also very into music, watching it. Unfortunately, we don't do much of that right now, but I really had outlets and those sort of things at the time. I think the experience at Davis that I wish I could experience is just wander around this university and find new things just by walking around it. Just areas. I think that's something that can be encouraged virtually as well. You can discover things about things there. There are some tools, by the way. There's a tool called Profiles. If you look this up, it indexes all the researchers in the health science by the publications, by the research interests, by whether or not they have labs. So you can find things there that may be a faster way than just browsing the UC Davis website. So look at those resources. And then, you guys are students, don't be afraid to literally just cold walk up to doors, virtual, and knock on them. I think it's worked for me, and it works for everyone. You just be, I guess, walk up to the doors and knock on them virtually. Just be prepared with 3 questions. Come armed, and then do it. And you'll usually get a good response from people who are, like me, more than willing to talk about it ourselves, if asked. Yeah, I think overall my undergrad experience was never quite knew if it was relevant. Turned out it was, and I don't know if that's because it has made it so, but I always suspected that being capable of being nimble in technology, in particular data sciences, which is for this time, would always be important and necessary, and I just needed to find something to do with it, and I wound up doing that. I still wish I would have gotten into computer games, but or Bitcoin, but anyway, yeah. But yeah, I'd say enjoy that process. But if you are in a good position, there is infinite opportunity. Don't be shy. I think we all in the computer science world have this rep for being a little introverted. you only have to be 1% less introverted than your peers to really get ahead. Just 1%. You know, just have to do it once when you wouldn't always do it, and then you will go ahead. So focus on that tiny edge there, and you know, enjoy the process. Yeah, but the biggest thing in health data sciences is demonstration is basically by making things. You know, make some things. You sure, very popular.